Hello, I am the cartoonist M. Rashid. Today's cartoon was originally inspired by a comment that I saw uh, by a white conservative where he referenced, uh, he said, uh, as part of the point he was making in this comment, he referenced the idea that the left, as a fantasy, is how he put it. He said that the left fantasizes that people, that everybody used to be black. That's what he said. And to me, that he's referencing you've seen where they talk about the natives in a lot of countries where um, there's old photos, if they're extinct, of dark skinned people with um, uh, curly hair, curly kinky hair, and they would change over time, and then the people that we know in those lands now no longer look that way. So there was a few memes circulating over the years that would show the natives in all these particular different countries that today we see them as lighter skinned, the dominant groups in those countries. You know, like sometimes there will be, that they're not extinct in the modern day. You just have to know where to go in the more rural areas of these countries, and you'll find people that on site there, even though it's like a non-African country, these people you'll find look African. Like and there was one guy who was doing this study where he was like tracking the bloodline of these people from out of Africa and how they went like all over the world. And then he's testing the DNA of these particular groups, and they all lead to this particular African tribe through the ages. Being able to track where they went next and where they went next. It was a fascinating study. You know, but it showed that this ancient people who did all that movement uh, retained this basic look that they had from their distant ancestors. And in a lot of countries, you could still find the original people who settled there with that same African look on them. So despite these facts, this particular guy was like, it's a fantasy, just dismissed it out of hand, you know. So kind of went on the rabbit hole about that for this cartoon, and it reminded me of Christopher Columbus and the colonizing tradition out of Europe, and how they would show up in these lands. Um, they would take the slaves and the riches and stuff, of course, and send it back home and then do whatever they were going to do there. But they would also not bring any of their women with them, So while they're like settled here, they're creating a middleman biracial ethnic group from scratch, and that 500 years of European colonization around the world. It's a lot of these groups, not all, there's a lot of groups around the world that we take for granted look the way they look today when this was not the case. We take for granted that certain of these people are the natives of this land in the way we say native, where it turns out that what we're used to seeing in these particular countries are actually a biracial stock brand new ethnic group, you know, that can't be, as we know them today, can't be older than the 500 years of European imperialism. And of course, you know, I'm tracking it just from a very particular time period when I used the 500 years. But of course, the Roman Empire and stuff was spread out pretty wide and stuff too. And they were, of course, older than that, you know. So when we see once the restrictions on immigration after the New Deal period, once those restrictions were lifted and the people of color, the BIPOC immigrants, started being able to come over as counter to the Civil Rights Act of 64 and the Voting Rights Act of 65. Once that new immigration act enabled those non-white immigrants to start coming over, the favor of those groups that they receive from the dominant political identity in America, like, it has a different flavor on it, just what him saying that about it's a fantasy that people used to all be black. Well, a lot of those people are no longer black and as the dominant groups in their countries, because these are your kids. That's why they look that way. These are biracial stock who've become a completely different ethnic group, whose languages are hybrid languages, half European and half whatever they used to speak. So that's why they have the favor they do. That's why you treat them the way you do. Because these are your kids. As a culture, these are your kids. And maybe perhaps when you fetishize them, this has a bit of an incest thing on it. Because these are your kids, the children of the European colonization age. So, I know it, that's why I'm shoved to the side, and your kids are given favor over me. None of that stuff looks fair. None of it's fair. None of it's right. And how you move in the earth, and the entitlement that you feel you have over people's wealth and bodies and land, and how you're treating people. Like in America, during slavery and even after slavery, with the paper bag test and the colorism that we have, and where colorism is actually coming from. It comes from the manufactured through your lusts over entitlement over the bodies of dark natives. You created a middleman group. Some middlemen come from other places and migrate to take advantage, of the situation if there's no middleman already there. There's that. But some people are middlemen because you made them. You procreated them into existence. And in America, we had a mulatto class, still have, who have that same spoiled, entitled thing on them, who get all the favor. It's most noticeable in Hollywood. That the reason that they get the favor that they do is because these are your kids. I'm not mulatto. I just happen to be a light-skinned Black American from two light-skinned Black American parents. But I am who I am. I am the Black American former slave class, and I look. My parents and my line look the way they look because of the entitlement of the dominant class over Black flesh. The entitled privilege you believe you have over, like, all that is good only belongs to you is how you act. And my family line are the fruit of how you move through the earth visually. So the idea that you can be fresh off the boat as a immigrant, fresh off the boat, fresh across the border as a middleman biracial stock speaking a European language, and you're not even a legal resident, but you have all this favor and entitled privilege that you get over the Black American former slave class group who's been there for 400 years, who still hasn't been given our due. But this group, or that group, or this group, or that group, who speaks a hybrid European language and looks biracial as an ethnic group, they show up and have all this magical favor over me. Weird. Why does this particular, because you can see that in individual family dynasties, people will like have favor from guilt. Who told the joke? Who told? I just heard it not too long ago. Somebody told the joke about people looking at a family tree, and I think it was Paul Mooney shaking the family tree, and the white guy is like, everybody else is like, oh, look at what's falling out of the tree, the family tree, and the white guy is like nervous as to who's gonna fall out the tree. That. So this is the inspiration for this particular cartoon. Peace.